Here's the rewritten script in simple and clear English for a 5th grade student, without timestamps. On a very hot, flat land in ancient Mesopotamia, the future of the world hung by a thread. On one side, the Persian Empire stretched from the Mediterranean to the mountains of India, with an army so huge it seemed unstoppable. On the other side, a young king barely 25 years old, leading a smaller group of tough warriors, and a dream that seemed like madness: to take the world for himself. October 1st, 331 BC, a battlefield where the future would be decided in blood and steel. Alexander the Great was outnumbered, overpowered, and deep in enemy territory. Yet, on that single day, he used a plan so brave, so unbelievable. It didn't just win him a battle, it destroyed an empire. This is the story of how Alexander the Great broke the Persian Empire in one day. To really understand what was at risk here, we have to go back 2 years. In 333 BC, at the Battle of Issus, Alexander had already given a stunning hit to Darius. Despite having fewer soldiers then too, Alexander's smart fighting skills won the day. Darius was forced to run away, leaving his own mother, wife, and daughters behind as Alexander's prisoners. After that, Alexander took control of the entire eastern Mediterranean coast. He conquered the legendary city of Tyre in a brutal 7-month attack, and was even welcomed into Egypt as a liberator, where he founded the city of Alexandria, with his back protected. Alexander was now the master of the western half of the Persian Empire, but Darius was far from finished. He retreated to his main heartland to regroup. From there, he sent a message to Alexander with a staggering offer. Ancient sources tell us he was willing to give up all lands west of the Euphrates River, give Alexander his daughter in marriage, and pay a massive ransom for his family. It was an offer to split the empire. Alexander's veteran general Parmenion was impressed. He reportedly told his king, "I would accept if I were Alexander," to which Alexander gave his legendary reply, "So would I, if I were Percanian." For Alexander, there couldn't be two suns in the sky. He didn't want a partnership, he wanted it all. With that rejection, the stage was set for one final decisive showdown. And this time, Darius, having learned from his mistakes, would choose the battlefield himself. The two men who met at Gaugamela couldn't have been more different. Darius III was the great king, ruler of an empire that had dominated the Near East for over 2 centuries. He commanded enormous wealth and manpower. For this battle, he gathered forces from across the empire: Bactrian cavalry, Scythian horse archers, and even war elephants from India. Ancient historians who love to exaggerate give wild numbers, but modern estimates suggest a force of perhaps 100,000 or more. At its heart were the Persian Immortals and thousands of Greek mercenaries, hired guns fighting for the highest bidder. Darius's strategy was simple: crush the Macedonians with sheer, overwhelming numbers. Against this giant stood Alexander and his army of around 47,000 men. Yes, they were outnumbered, but they were a unified, professional fighting machine, loyal to the bone. They trusted their king completely, partly because Alexander always led from the front, sharing every danger they faced. The Macedonian army was built around 2 killer innovations. First was the phalanx, blocks of infantry armed with the sarissa, a massive pike up to 18 feet long. When they locked in, they were an almost unstoppable wall of spear points. The second was the elite Companion Cavalry, the finest heavy cavalry in the world. Alexander himself would lead this unit, his hammer designed to deliver the final shattering blow. Darius had the numbers, Alexander had the discipline, the tactics, and a totally unshakable belief in his own destiny. Darius had chosen his battlefield carefully, a wide flat plain near the village of Gaugamela. This was his killing ground, a place where his cavalry could outmaneuver the Macedonians and where he could unleash his secret weapon. He even had his engineers level the ground, clearing away hills and shrubs that might interfere with his 200 scythed chariots. These were terrifying weapons, chariots with long, sharp blades sticking out from the wheels, designed to slice through infantry and cause absolute chaos. As the Macedonians arrived, Alexander rode out to scout the Persian lines. What he saw was a sea of men and horses stretching for miles. It was a terrifying sight. His generals, anxious for the men, begged him to launch a surprise night attack. Alexander refused. He wouldn't steal his victory. He declared he would defeat his enemy in broad daylight for all the world to see. This wasn't just arrogance, it was a brilliant psychological play. By refusing to attack, he projected total confidence. The Persian army, terrified of a sneak assault, was forced to stay awake and in formation all night, becoming more and more exhausted. Meanwhile, Alexander ordered his men to eat a good meal and get a full night's sleep. As the sun rose on October 1st, 331 BC, Alexander's army was rested and ready. Darius's massive force was already tired before the battle had even begun. As dawn broke, the two armies faced off. The Persian line stretched for miles. A direct head-on attack would be suicide. Alexander's smaller force would be swallowed up and crushed. So he did something no one expected. Instead of advancing straight ahead, Alexander led his army forward at an angle, moving diagonally to his right. His right wing with him leading the Companion Cavalry pushed forward while his center and left hung back, creating a slanted line. This confused the Persian commanders. Alexander wasn't just moving away from their center. He was moving right off the specially flattened ground Darius had prepared for his chariots. Darius grew nervous. He worried Alexander was trying to swing all the way around his left flank. To stop this, he had to act. He ordered his cavalry on the left to ride out and block Alexander's advance. This was exactly what Alexander wanted. By threatening the flank, he forced Darius to send out his own troops, stretching the Persian line and pulling it apart. A massive cavalry battle exploded on the right flank. Alexander had successfully baited Darius, and the Persian line was already starting to lose its shape. With the cavalry battle raging, Darius figured the Macedonian lines were pinned in place. It was time. He gave the signal and the 200 scythed chariots thundered across the plain, aimed straight at the Macedonian phalanx. This was supposed to be the moment that broke the Macedonians a terrifying charge that would tear them to pieces. But Alexander was ready. He'd seen these before and had drilled his men on exactly what to do. As the chariots raced towards them, light infantry hurled javelins, taking out some drivers. Then the phalanx did something incredible. On command, the front ranks opened up, creating channels through the dense lines of soldiers. The horses, instinctively avoiding the spear points, veered into these open lanes. Instead of smashing into a wall of men, the chariots passed harmlessly right through the formation. Once inside, they were trapped. Soldiers from the rear ranks turned and swarmed the chariots, killing the drivers and horses. The weapon that was meant to be a game-changer had been turned into a complete non-issue by pure discipline. It was a mousetrap, and it worked perfectly. For the Persians, watching their feared weapon fail so completely, it was a massive psychological blow. With the chariot threat gone and the cavalry fight still pulling his army apart on the flanks, Darius's line was now dangerously stretched. The very cavalry units he had sent to stop Alexander had left a critical weakness. A gap had opened in the Persian line, right between his left flank and the center where Darius himself commanded. This was it, the single point of failure in the Persian giant. The exact moment Alexander had been engineering this whole time. He didn't hesitate. Breaking off from the flank, Alexander wheeled his Companion Cavalry, forming them into a giant wedge, with himself at the very tip. He then led a thunderous charge straight into that gap, aimed like a spear directly at King Darius. The Macedonian infantry surged forward behind him, crashing into the weakened Persian center. The shock of the charge was devastating. Alexander and his elite cavalry smashed through the king's personal guard. The stories say Alexander got so close, he threw a spear that missed the king but killed his charioteer. For Darius, seeing Alexander's cavalry bearing down on him was too much. Just like at Issus, his nerve broke. Terrified for his life, he turned his chariot and fled the battlefield. The flight of the king was the signal for collapse. As word spread that Darius had run, the Persian center, now leaderless and demoralized, broke and ran with him. The will to fight evaporated, but the battle wasn't quite over. As Alexander prepared to chase down Darius, a desperate message came from his left flank. His general Parmenion was in serious trouble. The Persian right wing had pushed back the Macedonians and was even raiding their camp. Alexander faced an agonizing choice: chase Darius and possibly end the war right there, or turn back to save his army. He made the tough but correct call. Halting his pursuit, he wheeled his companions around and charged across the battlefield to rescue His arrival shattered the Persian right wing, and the rout was complete. The Macedonian army pushed forward as the Persian army, now just a terrified mob, scattered in every direction. The casualties were completely one-sided. Alexander lost perhaps 1,000 men while tens of thousands of Persians were killed. In the aftermath, Alexander marched south to the legendary city of Babylon, which surrendered without a fight. He was hailed not only as a conqueror, but as the rightful king of Asia, the vast treasuries of the Persian Empire. Its gold, its royal baggage, and Darius's own chariot and bow were now his. Gaugamela didn't just win a battle, it broke the back of an empire that had ruled for roughly 2 centuries. Darius, meanwhile, was a fugitive in his own kingdom. He fled east, trying to raise another army, but his authority was gone. His own governors could see the cause was lost. About 9 months later, Darius was betrayed and murdered by one of his own commanders. When Alexander found his rival's body, he was said to have been saddened. He covered Darius with his own cloak and had him buried with full royal honors. Then he hunted down and executed the assassin. With these actions, Alexander cemented his claim as the legitimate successor to the Persian throne. The Persian Empire was no more. It belonged to him.